My wife told everyone I was useless after I lost my job, so I built my own business, became rich, refused to take her back. I used to think stability was love's greatest gift. I'm a 32-year-old guy, and for most of my adult life, I thought I had it all figured out. A steady job, a nice little house in the suburbs, and a wife who used to look at me like I was her entire world. Lauren and I had been together for 7 years, married for 4, and I honestly believed we were a team. The kind that weathered storms together. My mornings used to start with coffee brewing in the kitchen, and Lauren humming to herself while scrolling through her. She'd kiss me goodbye at the door before I left for work. It was ordinary, painfully ordinary, but I loved that routine. It made me feel safe. That all changed the day my company called me into a quick meeting. The HR rep didn't even make eye contact when she said it. We're downsizing. Today will be your last day. I remember sitting there, nodding like I understood, pretending I was fine, while my whole world tilted. 8 years of loyalty, erased in a 5-minute conversation. When I came home, Lauren's face softened immediately. She wrapped her arms around me, whispering, "We'll figure this out." For a moment, I believed her. That night, we ordered takeout, watched TV, and she kept her hand on my leg like she used to. I thought, okay, maybe love really does mean staying even when things get tough. But the next morning, something felt different. She didn't hum while making coffee. She barely looked up from her phone. Days passed, and her smiles became rarer, smaller, forced. She stopped asking how the job search was going. And one night, while I lay awake staring at the ceiling, I heard her laugh quietly at something on her phone. A laugh I hadn't heard in weeks. It wasn't meant for me. It's strange how love doesn't break all at once. It just starts to fade in tiny, almost invisible ways. At first, Lauren's changes were small. She'd sigh when I mentioned applying for jobs, or scroll through her phone while I was talking. One morning, I offered to make breakfast, and she smirked. "You've got plenty of time now. Might as well make yourself useful." She said it with a laugh, but something about it stung. I tried to ignore it. I kept telling myself she was stressed, scared. We were both adjusting to uncertainty. But her jokes became sharper. When friends came over, she'd toss in little comments like, "He's become a real house husband," or "I told him he could start a cooking channel." Everyone laughed, including me, but deep down, I was crumbling. I wanted to believe it was harmless teasing, yet her tone had changed from love to quiet resentment. I spent my days sending out resumes, trying to stay productive. Every rejection email chipped away at me. I'd glance at her as she got ready for her office job, hair perfect, heels clicking on the floor, perfume lingering long after she left. I missed her. I missed us. But each evening, she came home later. When I asked if everything was okay, she'd say, "You're overthinking again," and change the subject. Once, when I mentioned feeling useless, she sighed. "Well, maybe this is a sign to rethink things." That night, while doing the dishes, I realized she no longer kissed me goodnight. I stood there with my hands in the water, staring at my reflection in the dark window, wondering how two people could still share a house, but live in entirely different worlds. And then came the dinner. The one where she decided to let everyone else know how useless I'd become. Lauren's parents had invited us over for dinner that weekend. I almost didn't want to go. Something inside me already knew it wouldn't end well. But she insisted, saying, "Don't make it awkward. It's just dinner." I put on my nicest shirt, shaved, and practiced a smile in the mirror. I didn't want anyone to see how lost I felt. Her family's home was as polished as ever, spotless floors, expensive wine, and conversations that always felt like job interviews. Midway through dinner, her father turned to me and asked, "So, how's the job hunt going, son?" Before I could answer, Lauren chuckled, swirling her wine. "Oh, he's basically retired now. Full-time house husband. I told him he should start a YouTube channel about staying home all day." Everyone laughed. I forced a small grin, but my chest burned. I glanced at her, hoping she'd see my discomfort, but she looked proud of her little performance. Her mother added, "Well, at least you're around to help with chores, right?" Another round of laughter. My fork felt heavy in my hand. After dinner, I found her in the kitchen loading dishes. "Why would you say that?" I asked quietly. She didn't even look up. Relax. It was a joke. You need to stop being so sensitive. It wasn't a joke, I said. You embarrassed me. She turned, her expression cold. Then maybe get a job so there's nothing to joke about. That sentence, it hit harder than the layoff ever did. Because it wasn't frustration in her voice. It was disgust. We drove home in silence. The car felt smaller than usual, like it was closing in around me. When we got back, she went straight to bed without saying a word. I sat in the living room for hours, staring at my resume on the laptop screen, feeling like a man who'd already disappeared from his own life, and the next morning, she started pretending I wasn't even there. Days turned into weeks, and silence became the loudest sound in our home. Lauren stopped greeting me in the mornings altogether. She'd walk past me with her coffee, phone in hand, and mutter, "Don't wait up," before leaving for work. At first, I kept trying, cooking her favorite meals, cleaning the house, lighting candles at dinner, anything to feel like I still mattered. But she'd come home late, glance at the table, and say, "I already ate." When I asked what was going on, she'd sigh, "Nothing's going on." Stop being dramatic. The tone was always the same, cool, detached, rehearsed. But her eyes, they looked like she'd already checked out. One night, I couldn't hold it in anymore. "Lauren, talk to me, please. You've been distant for weeks. If something's wrong, tell me." She didn't even look up from her phone. "You're paranoid because you're not doing anything with your life. Maybe if you had a reason to get up in the morning, you wouldn't invent problems?" That sentence hit me harder than any argument ever could. I just stood there, numb. Realizing she wasn't trying to fix us, she was trying to make me believe everything was my fault. Over time, my world shrank. Friends stopped coming by because Lauren seemed tense. My family stopped calling because I always said I was fine. The house that once felt warm and alive turned cold and echoing. One night, I woke up at 2 a.m. and found her sitting in the living room, phone lighting up her face. When she saw me, she flinched and quickly turned it off. "Can't sleep?" she asked. "Who were you texting?" I asked softly. She rolled her eyes. "Don't start, Jake. It's a coworker. You really need to get help for this insecurity thing." She brushed past me and went to bed, leaving me in that dim light, heart pounding, mind racing, realizing that maybe the person I thought would always be my safe place had become the one gaslighting me into thinking I was the problem. And then I found proof that I wasn't crazy. It happened on a Thursday night. I was cleaning the living room when her phone buzzed on the couch. Normally, I'd never touch it. I respected her privacy, but something in me snapped. My hands trembled as I picked it up and saw the preview of a message that read, "He still doesn't know, does he?" My stomach dropped. I opened the thread and there it was. Messages from a man named Evan. I didn't even have to scroll far. Their conversations weren't just casual. They were emotional, intimate, full of inside jokes and late-night wish-you-were-here texts. My chest felt like it was caving in. I heard the front door unlock before I could even process what to do. I sat there, phone in hand, heart pounding in my ears. When she walked in, her smile froze the moment she saw me holding it. "Who's Evan?" I asked. My voice didn't even sound like mine. She sighed, not with guilt but irritation. "Jake, don't do this. It's not what you think. Because it looks like you're emotionally cheating on me with your coworker." "It's not cheating, Jake. We just talk. He actually listens when I vent. You've been different since losing your job. Different." That word stung more than anything. "So while I've been breaking my back trying to hold us together, you've been finding comfort in someone else." She crossed her arms. "You're twisting things. You made this house miserable. I just needed someone to talk to." The room spun around me. My vision blurred with anger, sadness, disbelief all at once. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I just stood up, grabbed my bag, and said quietly, "You win, Lauren." As I closed the door behind me, I heard her mutter, "You'll be back. You always come back." But that night, sitting on my brother's couch surrounded by silence, I knew this time I wouldn't. and yet I had no idea how hard the road ahead would be, or how much darker things were about to get. The first few weeks after leaving Lauren felt like falling through fog. I crashed on my brother's couch with one duffel bag, a cracked laptop, and a heart that felt hollow. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't even look at myself in the mirror without hearing her voice. "You're useless." Those words looped in my head until they became part of the silence. My brother tried to help. "You need to stop waiting for her to apologize," he said one night while we watched TV. "She won't. So build something that makes her irrelevant." His tone was blunt. But maybe that's what I needed, so I started small. I used what I knew, business strategy, management, operations, and began freelancing online. My first gig paid barely enough to cover groceries, but I didn't care. It was something. Every client that responded, every payment that cleared, felt like a tiny piece of my self-worth returning. Days blurred into nights. I spent hours studying how to build an agency, watching tutorials, reaching out to potential clients. My brother would find me half asleep at the desk and joke, "You're working harder for yourself than you ever did for them." He was right. I wasn't chasing a paycheck anymore. I was chasing redemption. Meanwhile, Lauren's posts started showing up on mutual friends' feeds, photos of her at bars, laughing, pretending everything was perfect. It hurt, but it also fueled me. I wanted to get to a point where her opinion didn't matter. 3 months in, I landed a corporate client, a small firm needing long-term consulting. It wasn't much, but it gave me the push I needed to form a name. Register a business and build a website. Every late night and early morning became a silent promise to myself. I'll rebuild. Not to prove her wrong, but to prove me right. And just when I started to find peace in the grind, a familiar name popped up in my inbox, one I never expected to see again. When I walked into that restaurant, I was ready not for her, but for closure. Lauren sat at the corner table, looking exactly like she used to before everything fell apart. Same soft curls, same perfume that used to linger on my shirts. For a brief moment, my chest tightened with something I hadn't felt in months. Familiarity. She smiled nervously as I sat down. "You look good, Jake," she said. "Successful suits you." "Thanks," I replied evenly, keeping my tone polite but distant. The waiter brought wine. She insisted on ordering our favorite, like nostalgia could erase what she'd done. The first few minutes were harmless small talk updates, laughs that felt rehearsed, but then her eyes softened. "I've been thinking a lot," she said quietly. "About us. About how I messed up?" I didn't respond. I just let her fill the silence. "I thought you'd never get back on your feet," she continued. I panicked. I was stupid, selfish. I just didn't know how to handle it. She looked down, pretending to wipe her eyes. "Evan was a mistake. I ended it a long time ago. I still love you." The words should have meant something, but all I felt was distance, like she was speaking to a version of me that no longer existed. Then her phone buzzed. The screen lit up with a name. Evan, her hand shot out to cover it, but I'd already seen. I leaned back slowly. "You ended it, huh?" Her face drained of color. "Jake, it's not." I raised a hand. "Don't you're not sorry?" "You're scared. You thought I'd still be the same man who'd take you back because I was too broken to say no." She blinked, silent. I stood. Dropped enough cash on the table to cover the meal and said quietly, "You lost me the moment you decided I wasn't worth standing beside." As I walked out, the cool night air hit my face, sharp, clean, and freeing. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't chasing closure. I was the closure after that night. Something in me shifted. I stopped looking back. Lauren had been a wound I kept reopening. But walking out of that restaurant felt like finally ripping off the bandage. Painful. But cleansing my company took off faster than I could have imagined. The consulting client I'd landed recommended me to 2 others, and before I knew it, I was juggling contracts, hiring freelancers, and running meetings from a small office I could finally call mine. It wasn't glamorous, but it was built from nothing. For me, every milestone felt like a quiet victory. My brother showed up one afternoon holding a newspaper. On the second page was a small business feature titled, "From Layoff to Leadership, Local Entrepreneur Rebuilds His Life." After job loss, there was my name, my face, my story. Guess who made the paper? He grinned. I laughed genuinely for the first time in months. That article went online, and it spread faster than I expected. Old coworkers reached out, clients poured in, and soon I was signing a deal that would take my business national. And then, irony struck. The company I used to work for reached out. They wanted to hire my firm to handle a project they couldn't manage internally. The same company that had thrown me out like trash now wanted my help. I didn't hesitate. I signed the contract with a smile and a single condition: my team would lead, not theirs. Meanwhile, word traveled fast. Mutual friends started messaging me. "Hey, did you know Lauren lost her job? She's been asking about you. She looks like she regrets everything." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. For the first time in my life, I didn't crave her apology or her validation. My success wasn't revenge. It was proof that I could rise without bitterness. But fate wasn't done yet. Because one night at a local charity gala, I was invited to as a sponsor. I turned, and there she was, Lauren, dressed to impress. Smile trembling, eyes locked on me like she was seeing a ghost. The ballroom shimmered with soft gold lights and the hum of quiet laughter. I was shaking hands with a few clients when I heard her voice, that unmistakable, careful tone she used when she wanted to sound composed. "Jake." I turned, and there she was, Lauren, wearing a deep blue dress that probably cost more than my first month's rent back when we were together. For a second, it was like time slowed, the memories, the arguments, the laughter that turned to silence. But then I blinked, and all I felt was distance. "Lauren," I said evenly, "didn't expect to see you here." She smiled, brittle but rehearsed. "I was invited by some friends on the board. It's been a while." Her eyes darted to the logo behind me, my company's banner on the sponsorship wall. I could almost see the realization sink in. "You've done well for yourself," she said, her voice soft, almost trembling. "Yeah," I replied, nodding. "Losing everything has a way of teaching you what matters." She laughed weakly. "You were always talented. I guess I just didn't see it back then." One of my associates walked over to introduce me to another investor. As I turned to leave, she touched my arm. "Jake, wait." The conversation paused around us. People glanced over. Her expression cracked under the weight of all the things she wasn't saying. "Can we talk?" "Just for a minute." I studied her, not the woman I once loved, but the one who taught me how quickly love turns to contempt when tested. "Of course," I said, smiling faintly. "But I have to greet a few people first." And before walking away, I added, loud enough for those nearby to hear, "Thanks for being here. Losing you was the best motivation I ever had." The words hung in the air like glass shattering. The investors chuckled politely, unaware of the history. She stood there, frozen, that confident smile finally gone. But later that night, she found me again, and this time, she wasn't smiling at all. The gala was winding down when she approached me again. Most of the guests had left. The music had softened into a low hum. I was standing near the balcony, nursing a glass of champagne, when I heard the click of her heels behind me. "Jake," she said, her voice quieter this time. "Can we please talk?" No audience. No pretense. I turned to face her. The confident woman from earlier was gone, replaced by someone tired, desperate, unsure. She clutched her purse like it was holding her together. "I've made mistakes," she began. I was angry, scared. I didn't handle things right. "But I never stopped caring about you." I raised an eyebrow. "You didn't stop caring?" "You told people I was useless, Lauren. You laughed while I drowned," her eyes filled with tears. "I was cruel. I know that. I hated watching you give up. But when I saw you tonight, I realized, maybe we could try again. Start over." I stared at her for a long moment. There was a time those words would have broken me open. The old me would have clung to them, desperate for validation. But that version of me was gone. "You want to start over?" I asked quietly. Where was that energy when I begged you to talk to me? When you told your friends I was pathetic? She reached out. People change, Jake. I've changed. No, you haven't. You've just run out of options. Her lip trembled. So that's it? You're really walking away? I nodded slowly. You made sure everyone knew I was useless. But the truth is, I just hadn't realized how useless you were to my peace. Her tears fell then, silent. Heavy, real. I turned, placed my glass on the railing, and walked past her without looking back. The night air was cool, sharp, cleansing. Every step away from her felt like reclaiming oxygen I hadn't breathed in years, and as the doors closed behind me, I realized revenge wasn't always loud. Sometimes it was just the sound of silence she'd never get to fill again. It's been 2 years since that night. Sometimes I still think about Lauren, not with anger, not even with sadness, but with a strange kind of gratitude. Because without her betrayal, I never would have become who I am now. My business has grown beyond anything I imagined. We've opened offices in 2 cities, hired dozens of employees, and landed contracts with companies that once ignored my resume. I walk into meetings wearing the same watch I had back when I was jobless. A quiet reminder of how far I've come. People often ask what drives me. They assume it's money, revenge, proving a point. But honestly, it's peace. The kind of peace that comes from knowing I don't owe anyone an explanation anymore. A few months ago, I heard through a mutual friend that Lauren moved back in with her parents. Evan left her. The company she joined folded. Apparently, she's been trying to find herself. I didn't laugh. I didn't even feel smug. I just felt done. Like the story had already ended long ago. Last week, I was sitting in my office overlooking the city. It's the same skyline that used to intimidate me when I was broke, and I realized something. I don't miss her. Not her laughter, not her scent, not even the illusion of love we once had. What I miss is who I used to be before I lost myself trying to please her. But even that version of me served a purpose. He had to break for this one to be born. So if you asked me now what I'd say to her if we ever met again, I'd probably just smile and say, thank you, because sometimes losing everything isn't the end. It's the quiet beginning of the life you were meant to build all along. And as I shut down my computer and stepped onto the balcony that night, watching the city lights flicker below, I whispered to myself, I wasn't useless. I was just unfinished.